Hey y'all, it's your Missniecytv and I'm here to do a review for Divorce Sistas Season 1, Episode 11. The episode picks up where I left off and Jeff is still doing CPR on Les, and Rashida's talking to the EMS people, and the EMS people basically give her instructions and tell her that they're on their way. But as Jeff is doing CPR and talking to Les and trying to get him to wake up, Rashida comes back in there with some Narcan. And she gives it to Laz, and he eventually wakes. I'm not gonna lie to you, I really thought Laz was up out of here. So eventually, when Laz does wake up, the only part that I don't like is that they immediately start grilling him. Well, Laz has some pills laid out on his dresser, and Jeff starts asking him, where do you get it, how do you get it, and all this other stuff. And eventually they go downstairs and they have a conversation with Laz, and it starts to get a little bit worse. And Jeff is being Jeff and basically telling him, if you don't tell me we're going to the hospital. Laz is like, we're not going to the hospital. Jeff is like, yes, we are. So it turns out that Laz had smoked some weed that was laced with fentanyl, and Jeff is like, where'd you get it? Laz is like, I can't tell y'all that. Jeff is like, would you rather deal with them or deal with me? Laz tells them the truth, and he lets them know that he got it from some kid named Benny's older brother. And they're like, Benny? Apparently they know Benny because he goes to the church. Rashida's like, so you've been getting drugs from right under our noses, huh? Rashida's like, I want you to write down all the names of the people that have also tried it, because Laz lets them know that people at the church have also tried it. And Laz is like, I'm going to text it to you. Rashida's like, no, you're not. You're going to write them down. Laz is like, I actually don't know where my phone is. Jeff is like, I do. It was with some pilgrims when I went to go look for you last night, and I got your phone. And then Jeff is like, you know what, go upstairs, get dressed, and we're going to the hospital. Laz is still trying to put up a fight, but he eventually does go. So Rashida and Jeff have a conversation, and Rashida's like, I'm so glad I got that Narcan because the Holy Spirit was telling me to get it this week, and I have it everywhere. I have it at the church, I have it in the car. Jeff is like, I'm so glad that I have a woman that listens to the Holy Spirit, and they tell each other that they love each other, and that was a very scary moment for them. So Rashida's like, I'm going to go upstairs to see if Laz needs help. That leaves Jeff downstairs, and he just has a conversation with God, and he's like, thank you for saving my son. I really hope that things do start to change around for Laz after that near-death experience, because if it wasn't for his mama, he would have been up. Then we see Geneva come over to Naomi's to talk to her about the case and everything and how everything's going to work out. And Naomi basically tells her, I got that handled. I talked to somebody, and Geneva's like, who? She's like, Javon. As soon as Naomi said Javon's name, Geneva's whole face and posture changed. Like, she got so mad. And Geneva was like, so how'd you talk to him? Naomi explains the story of how she went over to Tiffany's just to ask for Javon's number, but come to find out he was actually there, and he came downstairs with just boxers on. Geneva's like, just boxers? Yeah. Naomi's like, so he came downstairs with just boxers on, and he was just swinging around. And Geneva's like, so they was really getting down to business. Geneva, you can't really be mad because nobody knows that you're in love with this man except for Rashida. Like, what are you doing? You're basically telling on yourself without telling on yourself. So Geneva's like, what'd you call me over here for if you got that all in? Naomi's like, I just wanted you to come with me when I turned myself in. Geneva's like, I can't really do that. My child just got out of the hospital from falling. And she mentions Anika's name. And Naomi's like, who? Geneva's like, really? You're supposed to ask if she's okay. And Naomi's like, well, you know I be smoking, I be drinking, and all this other stuff, right? Naomi's like, don't worry about it because Tiffany's probably going to be there. And Geneva's like, so they really serious like that? And Naomi's like, yeah, I think so. Geneva, why do you even care? You're supposed to be out here telling William the truth and let him decide what he wants to do. But you're out here trying to figure out what Javon's doing and how he's moving with Tiffany. Geneva, I want you to be honest. You're not even in love with the man for the person that he is. You're only in love with him for what he did for you 6 years ago, physically. Geneva, I'm gonna need you to get over yourself because it's not always. Then we see Jeff and Laz having a conversation on the way to the rehab because that's where Jeff is taking Laz. They have a father and son conversation, and Jeff is basically telling him that he doesn't want Laz to turn out like his family because everybody in his family does drugs, and he's just waiting on the call to find out that they have passed away. Jeff is basically telling Laz that he's special because he prays over him in a different way that he prays over other people, and that he can't be doing things that other. Laz tells him the truth. He's like, it's hard being a pastor's kid because they think that I'm special and I'm supposed to be marrying their. Laz is like, they also tell me that I'm supposed to be a pastor like you, and Jeff is like, well, I'm not perfect either. He's like, you know that. Laz is like, they don't seem to know that. Jeff is like, all I try to do is try to live in the ways that God will be pleased with me, in the way that I talk, in the way that I act, in the way that I treat people, because at the end of the day, all I want to hear is that God is pleased, and I will hear, well done. He's like, I want the same for you. Then Jeff apologizes to Laz because he's like, I'm sorry I treated you like that. My father used to do that to me, and I strive to never do that to you, but I really wanted you to understand that this is not a game, basically. And I want you to be okay because I love you more than anything in this world. Jeff is like, did you see the look on your mother's face? I'd never want to see that again. And Laz is like, I promise to never do that again. And he's just promising that he will be different now. Do I believe it? I just don't like the fact that after Laz says that he just wants to be normal, Jeff reiterates that he's special. Laz basically told you that he don't want to be special. He wants to be a normal kid. Jeff didn't even take the time to ask Laz what he's interested in or what you... People in the church need to realize that people that have titles in the church, their kids are normal. And they're human, and they're going to make mistakes. They don't have to be the same title or some form of the title that their parents are in the church. They could be just normal kids. Stop putting these kids on a pedestal that they're not even supposed to be on, because I can guarantee you that they don't even put you on that same pedestal. Over at Tiffany's, we see Rashida knocking on Tiffany's bedroom door, and the only reason we know that that's Tiffany's bedroom door is because on the other side of the door, her and Javon are getting down to business. So Tiffany and Javon stop what they're doing to answer Rashida. Rashida basically tells them that she needs to talk to Tiffany because Tiffany called her, and she's like, I'll be downstairs. Javon's like, so how'd she even get in here? Tiffany's like, we all have keys to each other's houses. Yeah, those keys are for emergencies only, but clearly none of the girls use them for emergencies because we see Naomi break into her house just to talk to Javon. Then we have Rashida coming to her house to talk to her, but clearly I feel like Rashida made it felt like it was an emergency because she called Tiffany and Tiffany didn't answer. So some time passes and Tiffany and Javon come downstairs and Rashida did make the coffee that she said she was going to make, and Javon's like, I see you made coffee. Rashida's like, yeah, for me and her, but I could make you something to go. Javon tells Rashida not to worry about it, so Javon leaves, and Tiffany starts gloating about how Javon basically told her how perfect she was, how perfect her house was, how perfect they fit together. And Rashida's like, oh, did he? That's the same exact thing that Geneva said that he was going to say to Tiffany, and she's going to fall in love with it and all this other stuff, right? So basically that's what's happening. She really likes Javon, and she really thinks that he wants to be with her. Rashida basically let her know if you start with something, then that's basically what the whole relationship's going to be. So she was like, if you start with y'all getting down to business in the beginning, that's all it's going to be. And Tiffany is like, I don't really think it's going to be that. I think he really likes me. I'm like, girl, you so slow. Rashida's like, so what'd you call me for that? And Tiffany's like, well, I just wanted you to talk me out of it. Rashida's like, I can't be your conscience. There's no woman on this world that should be able to tell you what to do with your cooch besides yourself. Like, if you can't listen to yourself, you know that you shouldn't be making a decision. Tiffany is like, well, maybe I just need to repent. And Rashida let her know, you know, the art of repenting is making sure that you don't do it again. It is clear that you want to do it again. Tiffany's like, you're right. So Rashida's like, I'm going to go. And then Rashida leaves. And Tiffany's just sitting there. And I'm like, girl, you know how slow you sound? That man don't even want you. He's just doing it to make Geneva. Over at Naomi's, Hakeem comes over there. And he's basically like, you ready to get this plan over with? And Naomi's basically like, yeah, but I got to tell you. She basically lets him know that Franklin used to abuse her and their son, and Franklin used to S.A. Grayson. And I'm like, yeah, that's grounds for Franklin to get up out of here. Hakeem is like, why didn't you tell me this sooner? That's definitely grounds for him to get up out of here. He gotta go. And Naomi's like, yeah. Naomi's like, he's still at the hospital, but you should be on his way home soon. Hakeem was like, how you know that? Tiffany's like, don't be asking me no word. Naomi lets Hakeem know that Franklin is some type of neat freak, that he knows where everything is supposed to be placed, and he knows if something is out of place. So she's basically like, you gotta be smart. I still feel like Naomi's the dumbest criminal in the world, because why would you try to complete I still feel like Naomi is the dumbest criminal in the world, because it's all gonna come back on you, because they know that you have some connection to Franklin, and they know that you have a strong disdain. Over at the rehab, we see Laz and Jeff in the morgue section of the rehab. And Laz is like, what are we doing here? And Jeff is like, well, one of the people from the church wanted to talk to you. So apparently the guy's a doctor, and the guy comes in and he basically lets Laz know that his EKG is kind of shaky, but otherwise it would have been alright. The doctor basically tells him to look around, and all those people that you see here, those are basically young people that tried drugs and they didn't make it. Then he unveils some guy that's already on the table. He's like, he's 14. That was his first time trying Molly, and he didn't end up to see another day. But Jeff keeps reiterating the fact that he doesn't want that for Laz, and I think just by seeing in the morgue section of the hospital, I hope Laz does change her. Over at the law firm, we see Naomi come in there to talk to Geneva about what to do with her money when she turns herself in because she doesn't want Franklin to get it right. They're trying to figure out all these options. Naomi's like, I'm going to put some money in the LLC. I'm going to put some money in my account in Asia so that he doesn't get it. Out of nowhere, Naomi pulls out a duffel bag and Geneva's like, I don't need this bag. Naomi's like, I want you to have it. Geneva's like, I don't need this bag. She's like, open it though. So Geneva opens the bag and there's $5 million in there. And Geneva's like, so what you want me to do with this? Naomi's like, I want you to keep it so he doesn't get my money. Geneva's like, I can't keep this. Naomi's like, yes, you can, and you're going to keep it. Then Naomi basically tries to guilt trip her, and Geneva's like, okay, I'll take it. So Naomi's like, when are you going to put it in the bank? Geneva's like, I have to make an appointment because I can't just walk up in there with $5 million. Naomi's like, okay. But during this whole conversation, Geneva has this whole attitude, and Naomi's trying to ask her what's wrong, and Geneva's like, nothing, I just have work to do. Girl, if you don't tell somebody the truth, that you're mad that Javon is out here messing with Tiffany. Over at the church, we see Pastor Jeff come in, and Myron's trying to talk to him and let him know that William is there. So he lets him know that William is there, but he is also trying to make a conversation. And Pastor Jeff ain't trying to hear it. So Pastor Jeff and William have the conversation, and William is like, how can my child not be my child? Pastor Jeff is like, I'm so sorry to hear that. William is like, well, I've been trying to weigh out my options and who it could possibly be and who was around during that time. And there was only one person that's always been around. And Pastor Jeff is like, who? William is like, you. Pastor Jeff is like, I would never do that. William is like, I know you wouldn't. I was just trying to weigh out my options. And he's like, there's 2 other options. Pastor Jeff is like, who? William is like, Javon and this guy named Quincy. And I'm like, William, then put your thinking cap on. You need to go with the second option. William is like, actually, I think I should have a conversation with Quincy. Pastor Jeff is like, I don't think you should do that. William is like, why? Pastor Jeff is like, I just don't think it's a good idea because Geneva needs to be the one to tell you. William is like, she does tell Rashida everything, so Rashida probably knows. He's like, Pastor Jeff, can you find out for me? Pastor Jeff is like, we don't talk about the people that we count. Pastor Jeff is like, well, what if I set up a dinner with me and Rashida and you and Geneva and see if you can get answers? William is like, okay, but she's not going to give me the answers that I need. Pastor Jeff winds up praying for William, and then William leaves. Once William leaves, Pastor Jeff has a conversation with himself, and he's like, William has lost his mind. If he thinks I'm going to sleep with Geneva, I would never do that. That's when we see Rashida walk in, and she basically asks Myron to have a conversation, and Myron looks all nervous, and Bridget encourages him to have the conversation with Rashida. But before that conversation, Pastor Jeff walks out and he talks to Bridget. And he asked Bridget, what's Rashida's... Bridget's like, she's actually in there having a conversation with Myron. I can go get her if you need me to. Pastor Jeff is like, no, let her have that. Over in Rashida's office, Rashida and Myron have the conversation. It basically felt like a woman-to-woman conversation. If you know the song by Shirley Brown, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He basically tells him that she's Jeff's rib and she's Jeff's neck, and she leads him in the direction that he's supposed to go. And she basically asked Myron, does he have feelings for Pastor Jeff, and why he basically called Jeff attractive. And Myron is like, well, maybe it stems from my daddy issues because I never really had a father around and Jeff really cares for me. Rashida's like, so you turned that care into something else. And Myron looked like he wanted to say maybe. Rashida's like, well, I have a therapist that can help you work through those feelings. Myron is like, what feelings? Rashida's like, you just said that you have daddy issues and maybe you could talk to her about it. Myron's like, okay. Myron, I just need you to be honest and say that you have feelings for the man. It's okay. They basically tell you that they're going to accept you for who you are. You just need to be honest with yourself. Rashida did give him a nasty read when she said, if I find out that you've been calling my man attractive or anything else of that nature, I'm going to slap you in the head with a Bible. So it's time for Naomi to turn herself in. And of course, Javon and Tiffany are there waiting on Naomi, and Naomi's late. Javon is, of course, flirting with Tiffany, and he winds up kissing her, and that's when Geneva walks up, and she's like, that's so unprofessional, and we all know the snarky back and forth banter with Tiffany and Geneva, and that's basically what happened. And Tiffany's like, so what's going on? Geneva just decides to leave, and Javon is like, I don't know. Javon, just tell her the truth. You know that Tiffany's falling for you, and all you're going to do is break her heart just because you want to make Geneva jealous. Just tell her the truth. Tiffany does not deserve to be hurt in this way. Let me know what you guys think about the episode. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn your bell notifications. Bye.